there, but I'm back and happy to hear from you. Welcome, Emmanuel from Atlanta. Please leave a message and just tell us where you're joining us from. And then I've got some questions to answer. And if you have a question for me, just leave it in the chat and I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. But in the meantime, just say hi and leave a message telling us where you are, where you're located in the world. I'm in New York State, about an hour north of the city, and very happy to chat with you today. Okay, so my first question is about the newsletter that we sent out yesterday. I don't know if you saw it. It's called When the Bottom Drops Out, or something close to that. And it's a story from a woman who contacted me. She got a good job about 5 months ago. Marilyn is her name, and she loves that job. She's really learning the ropes. She's figuring out the job. She's doing a good job. She knows it. The customers love her and everything's going well. But she got a devastating piece of news last month after just 5 months in the job. And that news was from her boss, who said that the woman who had the job before Marilyn, who left the country, and that's why there was a job opening, and that's the job that Marilyn got, that woman contacted the boss and said she doesn't like living abroad and she wants to come back and she is job hunting. So Marilyn heard this from her boss and she thought, well, I'm not going to probably have a job for long because this woman was great at her job. She was here for years. They have nothing against me. They like me after 5 months in the job, but this woman's going to come back. She'll probably start working part-time and then I probably won't have a job a year from now. And it's devastating. And what I told her was that the thing to do is to start thinking about what kind of job she wants after this. What has she learned in these 5 months about what she should be doing professionally? And she really does need to be ready to job hunt. And it's a sad story, but this is the working world today, particularly in the United States. I'm going to get back to that in 1 second. Welcome to Bees, who says your book was very helpful to me in the initial years of my career when I was completely lost. It really gave me the confidence. I'm so glad to hear it. That is wonderful, wonderful for me to hear. And I really appreciate you letting me know that. That's the reason I wrote the book, Reinvention Roadmap, because I worked with so many people who just felt gone, like my job went away and I don't know who I am anymore. So much of my identity was wrapped up in that job. I don't feel strong. I don't feel powerful. I felt that way. It happened to me twice in about a 5-year span. And I had been on top of the world. And then all of a sudden I was at the absolute bottom, feeling, because you don't feel when you everything drops out. I call it the free fall. You don't feel, oh, this is just temporary and I'll be back to my strong, powerful self. No one ever feels that way. They feel like maybe I was kidding myself when I was successful at work. Maybe I was confused, maybe I really am deeply flawed. No, of course you're not. It's just, this is what we've been trained, that you must have a job, and a good job, to feel like a real person or to feel like a member of society. And that's not just untrue, it's really damaging. And that's what we're all climbing out of together, is that toxic brainwashing that we underwent, as children and even still now today. So I really appreciate that comment. And hello, and welcome to everybody who's here. Leave a comment and say where you're from and where you are now, and then give me a question if you've got one, and I'll try to answer it. So back to Marilyn, who 5 months in the job is job hunting again. The thing is that, and this is what I wrote in the newsletter yesterday, we're all Marilyn now, particularly in the United States, because the United States is the only country on this planet, the only industrialized country, meaning a place where they have high rises and people in suits going to work, where you're not under a contract when you have a job. So you could be let go for no reason at any moment without any notice or severance. Some situations you have to get notice, but many you don't. And so we're all Marilyn. We're all sitting there like, I hope my job lasts, but what if it doesn't last? And that means we all have to do what I advise Marilyn to do and be ready for the next thing. We have to be ready. Friends in Europe and Asia, Africa say, how can you guys work without contracts? How can you put your head on the pillow at night and go to sleep? It's a good question. We're used to it. That legal framework, that legal doctrine in the United States that allows employers to dismiss people for no reason, you don't have to do anything wrong, at any moment, is called employment at will. And it came from the 1870s. There were employment contracts in this country before then. But the industrialists of the 1870s, when the United States was becoming the first global superpower after the Civil War, they went to their friends in the judiciary and the legislative branches of government and said, we don't like these contracts. It binds us, it constrains us. We just want to be able to let people go. And it's been employment at will ever since. So it means that we all have to be awake and aware and ready to get a new job if we need or want one. And so this is what I advise Marilyn, but this is also what I advise you and everyone that I interact with and that I reach with my posts and messages, is that we have to be ready. We cannot afford, none of us can afford to fall asleep on our careers and assume that the job we have is going to persist, because that's a very dangerous assumption, and it'll lull us into being not ready to be out there in the job market if we need to. All right. So I'm going to be scanning the chat for questions, and I'd love to see your questions. But in the meantime, I have another question that I'm going to comment on that was sent to me yesterday. Okay. Hi, Liz. I saw your YouTube live last week where you talked about employment gaps. And you talked about how to explain employment gaps or how to not explain them if you choose not to. But my employment gap is based on self-employment. I was self-employed for 4 years. So how do I explain this gap where I didn't have a regular job on a payroll, but I was working for myself? Okay, self-employment, good news, is not a gap anyway. That's not a gap. You just write in your resume, I was doing whatever you were doing. Coaching, consulting, something online, selling on eBay. You had a business. And it's interesting that we think gap, because we think, oh, well, self-employment isn't real. Really? Does it pay the rent? Does it pay the light bill? It's real. You're doing it and you're getting paid. And as a matter of fact, learning how to make money outside of a payroll is one of the best career skills that you can possibly acquire. Because when you know how to do that and how to get paid other than by an employer, you actually gain a lot of power over your career and your schedule and your income. And I actually encourage everybody who has a job to also have a side gig. Nothing necessarily elaborate, nothing big, nothing that you have to spend money to create, but just the ability to earn money some kind of way, right? Just like when I was in high school, I babysat like crazy and I got all my spending money from babysitting. People babysit as adults. They do childcare, and other people spin records as a DJ. Maybe not records anymore. Maybe they are, right? Other people do coaching, all kinds of coaching, and get paid for it, right? From neighbors and people in their community. And other people do various kinds of consulting. I have a friend who goes to people's homes and sets up their technology for them, just sets up their hardware and software, because people don't know how to do that. And there's so many of those opportunities out there. You don't have to necessarily even incorporate a business. In the United States, you can work independently using your social security number, depending on the type of business. Obviously, it can't be law or medicine, something like that. Can't sell insurance without a license. But there's a lot of ways to make money on the side, and it's really good to cultivate that kind of a side business, because when you're not working, you no longer have a gap. You have your side business, which becomes your full-time business during that time period. But also, you get used to negotiating. You get used to solving customer problems. And it's so empowering and it feels so good. And it helps them so much, right? So this is the way the working world is now. We have to be awake and aware, like Marilyn, whose predecessor is coming back to the country 5 months after Marilyn started her job and might take Marilyn's job. And this person who's asking about a resume gap caused by self-employment, that's no gap. That's just employment. It just happens to be that instead of one employer, you had a number of different clients. And it's a great, great thing to do. Okay. How do I manage a narcissistic boss who was very nice till the moment I signed my agreement to transfer to their department? Now I am paid well, but always get the toughest projects. Any hints? I'm so sorry. That stinks. So it turns out the true nature of this boss is to be kind of a taskmaster, sounds like. I get the toughest assignments, and they were so nice. That's the recruiting mode. They were so wonderful and warm, and now it's nose to the grindstone. So it's going to be a matter of project management, scope management. And by the way, from Angola, Lorindo, welcome from Angola. Wow, I haven't been there yet, but I would love to go. And welcome, Dakarapu from India. Welcome, welcome. Okay, so consultants do this. And when I talk about how much stronger we become when we do any little bit of consulting or coaching, this is a perfect example. The boss says, I got a huge project for you. You say, okay, let me dive into that, do a project plan. Oh, wait a second. I got another one that also is a huge priority. Do this one too. Okay, let me put all that together. Oh, wait. I got a third project. This is even higher priority. And you're like the cat in the hat in the children's book. You can't hold all these things up in the air, right? So it's scope and project management. You're going to be formal. You're going to be formal and process oriented. You're going to say, here's the project plan for project 1. Here's the plan for project 2. Here's how long each of these tasks will take. It will take you longer to do this work than it would to just dive into these things, but you have to do it because this is how you create a bit of a wall or a barrier around your own life, your own time, and sanity. When you have this stuff in writing and you show it to your boss, which is what I want you to do, and say, so I've got this, and this is going to take me till a week from Thursday, and then I have this coming right after. Is that still the right priority, boss? Is this still higher? Okay. And then I have this. So you've asked me to do this other thing, and it can happen, but it won't be till May. Tell me what to do. In other words, you are saying, this is how it looks. This is this is me doing my very best work. What we never want to do is just take on more and say, like, well, I'll figure it out somehow, because that's your evenings and your weekends. And no one will acknowledge that. If you're in a salaried position, they won't pay you for it. But worse, they won't even see it. They won't recognize it. And when we take on more and more work, we're just asking to be overloaded even more. And there's no end. It never gets better. So you're going to be formal and you're going to say, I went ahead and scoped out these 3 projects because I know they're important to you. And let me walk through with you what the project plan looks like for each one. And maybe we can interleave some of these tasks. Whoops, we good? But we need to do that because I need some guidance from you about what to do first, second, and third. So that's my advice for that situation. The narcissistic piece is unfortunately, common, but your priority is to set boundaries around so that you're not this just infinitely deep hole where they can throw requirements in and assignments and expect that it all gets done. All right. So Lynn from Seattle, welcome. If you have a question for me, throw your question in the chat and we'll try to dive into it. So I'd love to hear what you're thinking about and what you're dealing with at work and on the job search trail. And if you're in your own business, would love to hear about those issues too. Okay, I got a question. And the question is, who pays for lunch when you go to lunch with your boss? That's a good question. If your boss says, hey, you want to run down to the corner with me and we'll grab some sandwiches? Yeah, then it's just a person and you're walking to the deli together and you're getting sandwiches and it's not a business lunch and everybody gets their own sandwich. You can either sit and talk on the park bench or you can go back to work, but it's just a purchase, right? If it's a business lunch, that means you're talking about the business and you're with your boss or any boss, the boss pays. Always, always, always. Do not ever fall into the habit of having a business lunch with your boss or any boss and buying your own lunch, because then you lost your lunch. And the way this shows up is that your boss will say sometimes, hey, can we just grab lunch? Because I really want to talk to you about X, a project, this job opening we're having trouble filling, whatever, this marketing idea, whatever. And you say, is it a business lunch? Because I brought a apple in a kind bar. I was just you deserve your lunch. And you shouldn't ever be forced to pay for like a $20 salad or whatever because the boss wants to talk to you. That's a business lunch and they need to pay. And the universal rule of business lunch is that the most senior person pays. And actually, a CFO left a comment on one of my posts on this topic on LinkedIn, maybe a year ago. And they said, the reason the senior person has to pay with a company credit card or cash, whatever, but not the junior person, is because if the junior person pays, then it's the boss or senior person who's approving that expense report. And now you've got a boss approving their own lunch that they ate. And that's not cool. That's not appropriate. So it's always got to be the boss who pays. And I don't want you to fall into the trap of like, okay, I'll just have lunch with my boss and I'll pay. No. If you're talking about your dogs or you're talking about the squirrels eating your tulip bulbs, that's one thing. But if it's a business lunch where you're going to be doing business planning, business work, the boss pays. And you say, you know what, let's meet about that tomorrow morning because I actually, on my lunch, I have to, talk to my sister-in-law or whatever. Setting boundaries, never impolite, never difficult, just that's your lunch. And just as importantly, you should never be pressured into paying money for lunch that is a business lunch. That's crazy. You're not going to do that. It's the same way that companies will bring bagels or melon slices or whatever to business meetings because it's the company's expense, not yours. Okay, thank you. This is helpful. I'm so glad to hear it. Hello, Johnny. Where are you calling from or joining us from? Would love to hear. All right, next question. Hey, Liz, I have a coworker who's a very nice and pleasant person, and I like working with them, but they don't do anything. They don't do their job. It doesn't affect my job, but I just see them on YouTube and on the phone, and it just kind of drives me crazy because they don't do anything, and I don't know why the manager hasn't noticed this. I don't want to be a snitch or a horrible person. But should I say something to the manager? This person seems to literally do nothing. I understand why you say that. I read somewhere that human beings are wired to notice unfairness, and it bothers them. And other primates too, like chimpanzees in experiments, they will notice unfairness and it really bothers them. So that's maybe organic, it's in us. But in this case, you're not going to say anything. Because your problem is not with your coworker. Your real problem is with your boss. They're not paying attention, right? They're not paying attention, but that is their issue. Imagine if you went to the boss and said, this person over here doesn't do anything. First of all, the boss is rattled. They're surprised. You're kind of calling them out. And then they have to go find out and go talk to this person who says, well, who said something about me? Why? Why create that discord? You are on your beautiful path, walking forward. You are on your path, and you're not going to let anything get you off that path. You're going to try to maintain peace. I know it's hard. You're going to try to maintain your calm and just go through to your own destination. And what somebody else is doing or not doing, you're going to just give them grace, wish them blessings on their path, and put it out of your mind. It's actually the irritation about your perception, could be 100% valid, I don't know, that your coworker isn't doing any work that bothers you. Like the irritation, I can't believe that person, they're not doing anything. I can't believe they keep their job. Just deep breathing, right? It doesn't matter. You are going towards your own brilliant, glorious, wonderful future. It doesn't matter. It's a really important life lesson that we use at work and in our neighborhood. The neighbor that doesn't cut the grass, oh, well, whatever. Maybe I could help them sometime and help them with that problem. Maybe they're not able to do it, right? You've seen these YouTube videos, perhaps, of people who go around with lawn services and help people for free with their grass. It's so beautiful. And maybe we could all bring some of that energy. Or if you don't have time or energy or a lawnmower to help someone cut their grass, maybe you just don't bust them and report them, right? And the same thing with this person at work, because it literally takes energy from you, away from your mission, to go to the boss and say, they're only doing any work. Nope. No, I'm going to rise above that. I'm also going to rise above other things that don't concern me. Someone says something mean about me and I hear about it. What did she say? She said, what? Oh, you kidding me? Nope. Deep breath. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. They say that on your path, you will run into barking dogs and you don't have time to stop and bark back at them. Let them say whatever they want to say. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have anything to do with you. It doesn't slow you down. As you say, you know what? Not everyone in this world is going to appreciate my brand of jazz. And I know that, and that's fine. And I won't appreciate everybody else's brand of jazz either. And it's okay, because only the people who get me deserve me, right? And the person at work who isn't doing anything, maybe who knows what they're dealing with outside of work, right? Who knows what obstacles they have, and it doesn't matter. Maybe I can help them some way. Or maybe I can just tune it out and say, I have my own path to follow. So that's my advice about that. Okay. Hey, Liz, do you have any suggestions for managers? How to be a better manager to my team? What a fantastic question. If you have a question, put it in the chat and I'll try to answer it. I should mention too, I have a community, an online community. It's called the Career Community. And it's a place where I'm doing coaching like this all the time. And I answer questions for folks, and the fellow members answer questions. And we're talking about workplace and career and job search topics all the time. And also my courses, and there's a ton of content in there. So it's something to look at. And you'll find that on my website at Human Workplace. And that is humanworkplace.com. You can join our career community there and get into this idea of empowered work, empowered careers, and people helping one another to all get stronger and grow our flames together. Elisa, I'm from Toronto. How do you get around ageism, especially when you get interviews? Okay, thanks, Elisa. Let's talk about that, and then I'll go back to suggestions for managers. So ageism, age discrimination, is a real thing, and it's out there, right? It's not invented. It's true. There's evidence of it. And there's evidence of many kinds of employment discrimination, which, at least in the United States, are all unlawful. There's age discrimination, right? There's racial discrimination. There's gender discrimination, right? There's homophobia. There is ableism, which is discriminating against disabled people. There's a lot of discrimination, and it's all horrible, and it's unfair, and it's not even legal. But we're not going to get around it. It's a huge societal problem. So we're not going to sort of be able to deal with it in the clinch. If you run into it and someone doesn't hire you because you're an age that they don't feel comfortable with, that's just kind of the way it is. But you can change. And I really, really want you to change. I'm happy to help you change your perspective on this to say, you know what? I'm going to adopt a viewpoint toward my job search, which is just like the perspective that entrepreneurs and independent folks, coaches, and consultants have toward their work and their clients. And that is this, okay? It's a mantra. I want you to practice this. Some will, some won't. So what? Next. I'm going to say it again. Some will, some won't. So what? Next. Some will like your brand of jazz and they will hire you, and some will not. And we never know, and we will not know whether it's because of your age or something that they thought was lacking in your resume, rightly or wrongly, or because they have a friend they want to see in that job. It's not worth even thinking about. Some will, some won't. So what? Next. Now, there's another piece to this. It's not just that acceptance that allows you to say, I'm on my path. Not all these folks are going to resonate with me. I'm going to keep moving forward. That's half of it. But the other half is that there's something very powerful that you can do to get more interviews and more job offers and to surmount any kind of discrimination that you might run into. And here's what it is, okay? You are not going to go out there saying, I have these skills. Skills has to show up as a line on your resume and in your LinkedIn profile so that they will get people to your profile or get people to notice your resume if they do a search, which they're going to do. Any recruiter looking at LinkedIn is going to do a keyword search. So you want those skills in your resume and your LinkedIn profile. They got to be in there, but they are not the centerpiece of your resume or your LinkedIn profile. The centerpiece is something way more important than your skills. And that is your clarity about what kind of pain you solve for employers. That's your point on the arrow. That's what gets you interviews and what gets you offers. And it will be hard for someone, even someone with some bias toward older people, whatever that means to them, to not take you seriously as a candidate if they have that kind of pain. This is what consultants do and how they get their work. You might think like people are full-time consultants and some of them earn a lot of money. How do they get work? You know, there's a lot of them because they're very clear on what kind of pain they solve. Maybe they solve the pain of customers are leaving a firm and they're going to the competitors. That's a big pain point. Maybe they solve the pain of companies are not getting noticed on social media because their social media strategy is bad, right? Maybe they're solving the pain of high turnover or poor customer service, or they don't have good financial reporting. Consultants focus on pain, and we all need to do the same thing. And age discrimination, which is a real thing, and it's a sweeping, systemic societal problem. Doorbell. It's not going to be able to take hold and influence a decision to the same degree when you show up with the morphine for someone's pain. So what I tell job seekers is figure out what kind of pain you solve, right? When I started consulting, I was an HR leader for thousands of years. And when I left the corporate world to start consulting on my own 20 some years ago, I thought, well, I have this experience. People will hire me. No, they didn't. I'm sitting at home like, I had to figure out what kind of pain I could solve. There's two big pains in HR. My background's HR, right? One is recruiting, always hard to recruit and get the recruiting system down and make it work. And the other one is the team, people quitting or poor morale or whatever, right? Those are the two big pain points. Now there might be a third one around systems and having systems work. I don't mess with that so much. But that's how I started getting consulting work, is by knowing what kind of pain I could solve and talking about the pain, not talking about my skills, because skills, what are skills? Somebody could say, I have negotiation skills. We have no idea what they mean. Do you mean that you negotiated peace between warring nations and got them to sit down and sign a treaty and peace accords? That's huge. Or did you mean that you called the coffee vendor and got them to throw in a few extra creamers with the coffee? We don't know the scope and the gravity and the impact of your claimed negotiation skills. So it's almost pointless to say it in a resume. Negotiation skills, like what? Same thing. People say, I have superior communication skills. My darling, evidently not. Evidently not. Because where are they right now when you should be using them? In your resume or your LinkedIn profile. Why would you talk about them? Show us. Use them. Then you don't have to talk about them. Right? Dating sites. I'm from the old world where we met people face to face in public, but dating sites, you get to write about yourself. When somebody says, I'm really cute and sexy, do you think they're cute and sexy, or do you think they might be a little bit insecure? Because I'm looking at you and I get to decide if you're cute and sexy. Why are you telling me what you think you are? Just be it. It's the same way with your branding when you're job hunting. We're not going to claim skills. We're going to demonstrate them. So instead of saying, I have negotiation skills, you're going to use one of those bullets to say, I negotiated a 3-year agreement with our favorite vendor that reduced our costs by 27%. It's just right there. Ask me how I did it. Bring me in for an interview and I'll tell you the whole story. So ageism is there. Ageism is real, but focusing on that pain and showing up with that consulting type of evidence-based, story-based resume and LinkedIn profile, and then being able to amplify those stories in the interview is going to surmount a great deal of any kind of discrimination, because at the end of the day, people are trying to solve pain. That's why they hire people. It's the only reason that anybody pays anybody, right? Is to solve a problem. All right, let's see what else we've got. Oh, managers. Got to get back to my list. Here's the list. 10 things managers can do to reinforce their people and create a better culture in their department. I'm going to go through them. Okay, number 1, welcome newcomers. Unfortunately, the stats, the reviews on the typical onboarding process for new employees are terrible. People uniformly say they don't get enough understanding of what they're supposed to be doing. They don't get enough training. And even the basic steps in onboarding, like getting logins and getting hardware, getting a laptop, getting a desk, are not well handled. It's just a system that is not, working well. And that sets a very bad precedent. And it causes people even to decide within the first couple of weeks, maybe I should have taken that other offer. Maybe I could call them and see if the offer is still available. So welcoming new people, onboarding them in a warm, welcoming, friendly way is incredibly important. It's just so important. When I was an HR leader, I kept doing orientation meetings on Mondays, way past the point where we were a really big company and hiring tons of people, because I interviewed a lot of those candidates, not all of them, of course. I wanted them to see, I'm running HR, I'm the face of HR, anything you need right now today on your first day in this place, or at any point, you can find me and you can reach me and I will talk to you and I'm not scary. And that's a huge message to send, right? We did a lot of other things in the onboarding, which I could tell you about another time. But telling people right from the first day, we're so glad you're here. You could have worked anywhere and you came to work with us. So it's really, really good. The second thing is checking in with people a lot, not just one-on-ones. We'll talk about that, but the little check-ins. How's it going, Sarah? Did you get that thing? Did that person get back to you? Do you want me to do anything? Check in, check in, check in. Support. We tend to think, let me check in and see, are you doing, is the thing done? Is it done? Is it done? Have you got it back yet? Stress, pressure, right? What do you need? You're going to ease the way as a manager. You're going to go run out ahead and move the log jams and the roadblocks, right? You say, what do you need? Are you good? Well, could you approve my PTO request? Oh my gosh, I forgot. I'm going to do it right now. Then you go and do it right now, right? That's the job of a manager, is to soften the energy and to make people still feel like they're really valued. That's the job. That's the number one job, not to, get this stuff done. Okay, number 3, act on requests. I just said it, right? Somebody needs PTO. That's a big priority. Boom. Just do it. Put it into HR or whatever you need to do. Expense report, all that stuff. Take care of it. This is real life. Their sister-in-law and their brother-in-law and 14 cousins are waiting to hear, are they going to do this vacation? Do it. Just do it. Just never let that be an obstacle. That crushes people's spirit. My boss won't even approve my PTO. I'm working here till 8 o'clock at night, 3 days in a row, right? Next one is notice and acknowledge. Notice accomplishments. Hey, that presentation was ridiculous this morning. I was blown away. You really nailed it. Thank you so much. People want acknowledgement. We all want it. Nobody really gets enough, right? Acknowledge people. Small things, big things. Doesn't have to be a big formal anything. Doesn't have to be public. It just be, wow, we really, really love the way you are grabbing hold of this stuff and owning it. It's so great. Thank you so much. Pass on praise. If you hear praise for an employee on your team coming from a higher up or another department, pass it on. It's so beautiful when you say, I was just in the product meeting and they said they just loved your pricing data. I want you to know that people are noticing what you're doing. It's a wonderful thing. It costs nothing. It takes 5 seconds. Never let that kind of thing hit you and then don't pass it on. People need to know. Okay, one-on-ones, obviously, very important thing, right? Of course, you want to find out what's the status of projects or the status of whatever they're working on, but that can't be the whole focus of the one-on-one. What do you need? How can I help you? How are you feeling? How's your workload? So you mentioned this narcissistic boss, and that boss is probably not going to say, how's your workload? But at a one-on-one, you can do this project planning and discussion that we talked about, and you can say, I know I want to be sensitive to workload, because what's going to happen is if these guys keep sending me these daily requests from whatever department, that's going to get in the way of this project. That means your manager needs to go see those folks and figure that out as a process thing, because you're kind of in a closed box. You've got your 40 hours or whatever, and that's it. Like your heart and soul and brain and body need a rest. And so you're kind of telling them, if they do it or not, it doesn't matter. But what matters is that you told them, this is the box about to fill up, and I need to tell you, because if it was a machine that was being overloaded, you'd be all over it. Okay, clarify. Information overload is a huge problem for most working people. They're just, email and just, you go in the ladies' room and there's posters on the wall like, oh, more information. It's a real problem. And Slack or Teams or whatever, and everybody's like, ugh, the instant messages never stop coming. So clarifying and saying, hey, look, did you understand what I said in that email? Because it might, well, I actually have a question about that. Great. This could be the little check-in, desk side, or if they're remote, you just message them and say, did you understand that thing? Did that make sense? Clarify, clarify, clarify. Huge part of a manager's job is to communicate and listen, right? Okay, give visibility and access. When people are doing a good job, they want other people to know about it. And if you tell your boss that somebody on your team did something amazing, they may mention it back to that person or somebody else. And that's great. And access to higher up leaders is also a huge, huge recognition. It's a way of telling somebody, I wanted you to come to this meeting you don't normally come to, because I want you to talk about your idea for whatever the marketing plan for this product. I want the senior level leaders to hear your thoughts. And it's like, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Access, visibility. Okay, 2 more. Number 10, ask for input. What else do you want me to know? What am I not paying attention to? How could I be a better manager to you? Tell me something I should be doing or stop doing or keep doing. And finally, advocate. Advocate, right? Advocate for your employees. If somebody is not being heard, that's your job, is to go out and figure out why they're not being heard or why they're not getting a resource that they need. Advocate for them. If they're not paid enough for the job they do, you say, look, this job has grown and I did the research. And I know HR is swamped, so I did the research. This was the old job I hired them for at this salary. But this is the job they're doing now. It's dramatically different and they need a pay increase. And when people would do that with me as the HR leader and say, I've done the research, I love them. I'm so thrilled. Thank you. Let me just do a few things as well through our sources and we will put this plan together. Because they have to pay people correctly, right? Or they leave, which is way more expensive than paying somebody what they're worth. So those are 10 really important things that all managers can do. And I guess apart from advocating for pay in particular, all of them are free. Okay. Olam, you just helped me answer a question that has bothered me for a very long time. How do I demonstrate my skills? Thank you so much. Watching all the way from Uganda, East Africa. So glad that you are here, Olam. That is magnificent to hear. Yes, we're going to demonstrate skills in the resume, tell little stories. I call them dragon slaying stories that talk about times when you came and saw and conquered. And this demonstrates your skills, not just that you have them, like abstract administrative skills, organizational skills. We don't even know what those things mean. We don't have a shared definition. But when you tell a story, it tells us that you not only have the skill, but you know when to take that skill down off the shelf and use it to good effect. And you're telling us that you know the good effect, the impact, which means you really have a lot of altitude and perspective on your business, which is a huge benefit to hiring you as a awake, aware, on point employee. So, I teach this resume protocol. It's called a human voiced resume. And these dragon slaying stories are a big part of it in our club, the career community at humanworkplace.com. If you want to learn how to do this, come and see. Okay, next question here from Kenya, Raquel. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. That's wonderful. Welcome, Mohammed. If you have a question for me, just put it in the chat and I'll answer as many questions as I can. I've got another 15 minutes or so. Got a couple questions here on my list. Talked about the senior person pays for lunch. That's big. Okay. All right. Liz, why should I be ready? You told Marilyn, whose predecessor is coming back to the country, that she should be ready in case her job goes away, unfortunately. But why should everybody else be ready? I like my job. It seems like a stable job. Why do you want me to stay ready to leave? It seems like a lot of hassle. And also, how do I do it? You got to stay ready because things change. They change all the time in life and in work. Your job could go away, but even if your job doesn't go away, you got to be ready because you could change your life situation. Your circumstances could change such that this is no longer the right job, right? People write to me every day that say, I just got a new VP and my VP does not care for my manager's brand of management. And this is extremely obvious. And I don't know how it affects me or what it means for me. Real life. New VP just doesn't happen to like the way your manager manages. Maybe it wouldn't affect you. Maybe it would. It doesn't sound like a happy time, right? We have to be ready. This is the real world. I compare it to, we have glaciers, right? Unfortunately, the glaciers are melting. We know they're melting. And they're breaking up and becoming ice flows. And then the ice flows are getting smaller and smaller. And if you're standing on one of these ice flows and it's getting smaller and shrinking in the water, you're going to have to get a boat and you're going to have to paddle. And that boat is your readiness to do something else. That's what we need. It's a life skill. Now, when I was a little girl, my dad had the same job for 45 years. And so did a lot of people back then, mostly dads, because women weren't so much in the workforce at that time. But it's not that way anymore. Average tenure on one job in the United States is 3.5 years, and that's leaving out retail where the turnover is much higher. 3.5 years means we always have one foot in the job market. So you got to be ready. You just have to. It's your own control and power over your career and your income. How do you stay ready? Okay, 3 things. Number 1, know what kind of job you would want if you lost your current job or it no longer was the right job for you. Decide on what job you would want. Maybe it's the same kind of job you have now. Maybe it's totally different, but it's your choice. But you need to decide so that you can stay branded in your LinkedIn profile and your resume for the kind of jobs you want. Because you have to brand yourself for the job you want, not every job you could perform. Our goal with your resume is not to put out there everything you've done and every skill you've got, but to focus on the jobs you really want. Because that's what's going to get you the interviews, is that specificity. It's marketing, right? A job search is marketing. And a marketer has to know who's my target customer and why would they want to buy from me? Because I'm solving their pain, right? But we haven't been taught to job hunt that way. Most resumes are god awful, to be honest, because the terrible training, it's not your fault. It's just we were taught to write about ourselves in the worst way, like the most robotic, horrible way. All resumes look alike. And I noticed that in the mid-90s, and that's why I started writing about this stuff. I couldn't believe it. Stacks of resumes. They used to be paper like this, results-oriented, professional, bottom line-oriented. What does it mean? It's not even English. What are we talking about? Why would we tell people to write about themselves so they sound like every other person? It's nuts. All right. Let's see. All right. I can keep going. So that's why you should be ready. So the first thing is to know what you want, and then brand yourself in your resume and to the extent that you can while you're employed in your LinkedIn profile for those jobs that you want, not everything you've ever done, right? You're going to focus on what are the pain points these hiring managers are dealing with in the job I want. 1, 2, maybe 3 job descriptions or job titles, not all of them. I feel sad when I see a LinkedIn profile that says, I'm looking for a job in pharma, aerospace, or law. Nobody's going to contact you. They're not, what? Why? Out of curiosity, why did you pick those 3? Because that's what I've done already. Okay, but you're not necessarily more likely to get a job in pharma, aerospace, or law than anything else. Just decide what you want to do. It's always a choice. But we don't feel like that. Our fear, our beaten down nature because of this unfortunate brainwashing makes us think we have to say, please, Your Majesty, have I done anything that you would find worthy? It's not like that. You're going to decide and you're going to brand yourself and you're going to know, you're going to be so specific about what job you want and why you are a great candidate for that job. You're going to include these little stories, dragon slaying stories. And then the people that have that pain, they're going to be like, of course I'm going to interview this person, right? I mean, the next time we do this, maybe we'll talk about interviewing and how to get at that pain in the interview. And that's when you get the offer. All right. We've got time for maybe one or two more questions. Okay. La, 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 la. Oh, hi, Liz. I don't interview well. I know I don't interview well. What can I do about that? The cure for not interviewing well is two things. One is do more interviews. I do want you to be choosy about what job you take. Got to be choosy about what job you take, but you don't have to be choosy about interviews. If it's not an unsafe situation, go to the interview. Just practice, practice, practice. Go to interviews for jobs that you don't want. For sure, go to interviews for jobs you don't want. They can maybe talk you into it, right? You have an open mind. But if you're pretty sure you don't want the job, then the interview is just practice. And it's beautiful. Because it's not practice for them. They're treating it as a legit interview. And like I said, it's perfectly ethical because let them talk you into it. If they invite you to an interview, go to the interview. Just practice so you get more comfortable. Because the thing people do when they're nervous, understandably nervous, is they ramble. They can't stop talking, right? We've all done it. Go to more interviews. And the other one is be ready to talk about pain. Just that one little piece I'll give you of my interviewing protocol. Be ready to talk about pain. So how does that look? Actually, this is even more simple. This is even more simple than pain. Okay, forget the pain thing for now. We'll do that in a more advanced seminar. Here's an interview process that it just works so well. Okay, and we'll end with this. Any job, retail job, senior executive job, every job in between. You go on the interview and they're going to ask some open-ended question. Now, by the way, this is your hiring manager. This is not an interview with an HR screener or recruiter. Just get through that best you can. This is your hiring manager. They are the person with the pain. They are the person that went down the hall to the financial person that asked for money for budget to hire somebody, which could be you. It's not easy to get budget to hire somebody. So they have real pain that they were able to prove enough to get that budget. Okay. So now this is the person with the pain, your hiring manager, and you're going to say to them, hey, thanks for inviting me to the interview. And they're going to ask some kind of open-ended question, like, tell me about yourself. Or I'd love to hear a little bit about you. Very open-ended. Don't know how to answer, right? And you're going to give the tiniest little answer. You're going to say, well, let's say it's a cart attendant. Now they call it courtesy clerk or something at Target, which is a big retail chain in the United States. Okay. It's just, you go in there and you could buy a TV or clothes for the baby or groceries at some of them, all kinds of stuff. Red and white bullseye is their logo. You probably saw it. Okay. So you're applying to be a cart attendant at Target. That means that you go out in the parking lot, grab all the shopping carts, bring them back to the corral at the front of the store, and you carry heavy boxes out to customers' cars, and maybe back up the cashiers at the checkout and do other things. Okay, it's maybe stock the shelves. I don't know. So you go in there, and they say, "Tell me about yourself." And you're 17 years old, and you say, "Well, I'm a junior at Monarch High School, and I run track and play the oboe in the orchestra. But I don't want to just bore you talking about myself. Can I ask you just a quick question about the job?" You interrupt yourself. Well, I'm a junior in high school and I run track and I play the oboe in the orchestra, but I don't want to bore you talking about me. Can I ask you a quick question? What did you just do? You woke them up. Before you said that, they were asleep. They're thinking about the meeting they have to go to and the boss and the budget. And you say, well, I'm a junior. And wait a minute. Can I ask you a question? Now you woke them up. They're awake. And you say, can I ask a quick question? They're going to say yes. Never heard of a manager saying, no, you can't, right? I just want to ask you a quick question so I make sure that my remarks are relevant. Sure, great. You don't want to waste my time? Let's go. Ask me a question. Okay. This is a courtesy clerk job here at Target. And I understand just from being in the store, kind of paying attention, that I'm going to go out in the parking lot and grab the carts and bring them back to the store, and then probably break down boxes in the back, I assume, maybe stock shelves. I'm not sure. And then I probably learn the cash register so I can back up the cashiers. And is there anything else I'm missing about the job? Why do you ask that question? To show that you're paying attention, you're awake and aware. You're a high school student, but you're on it. You're switched on. You're not spaced out. You're not like, I don't know, my mom said I have to get a job. This is what I think the job is. Is there anything I'm missing? Manager says, yeah, you actually clean the bathrooms too. When can you start? Who else are they going to hire? Then the person who comes in and says, it seems like you'd be doing this, you'd be doing that. And is there anything I missed? You just covered like half of the ball field, right? In a more senior level job, it might be, so I would guess that with your rebranding that I read about on your website, that you might be dealing with this and this and this problem. That's pain. That's what you're going to do at that level. At any level, this works because you're talking about what really matters. You're not saying, well, I have this and I got my MBA. No one cares. Why would it matter? They only ask about that stuff because candidates seldom, if ever, move the interview off the script and into talking about what really matters. All right. Rachel, Rambabu, you mean recommending attend more interview for practice to gain practice? Absolutely. Go to all the interviews you possibly can without risking your current job. Rachel, nowadays we have that question of how much do you want to be paid? How do you go about that? Okay, and we'll finish with this. Great question. It is cultural, depends on the country. So I don't want to, give you advice that is more suitable to the West. Here, I would say, if you really know the job, you're exactly doing the job right now, it's an identical job, you know the pay scale very well, you just tell them what you found looking online, any AI or regular Google, what do junior accountants in Cincinnati get paid with 4 years of experience, right? There's a number. Just give them the number that you think is fair, right? Don't lowball yourself. Don't give an artificially low number so they'll like you more. Just tell them what the job should pay, okay? If you're not sure what the job is, the scope is bigger, or it's not clear from the job description, you can say, I would love to give you a number, but I don't know enough about the job. What is your hiring salary range? What are you planning to pay someone? We could start there. Sometimes they won't tell you. They'll say, I just need a number for you. And you say, I'd love to give you one, but I literally, if project manager, you got a project manager opening, could be 50K, could be 500K. Like, I need some guidance just to not waste your time and to decide whether it even makes sense to stay on this call. But I thought you said you were in Kenya. It could be totally different. And you may feel, or, you may understand that you just need to give them a number. Then I would go on a salary survey, and they're all over the place. You can find them online. Pay scale is one, and there's tons of others, and see what these jobs typically pay and give that number. Senior management role, interview how to tackle chairman of, we'll have to do that next time, but it seems like a great question. So you folks are awesome. If you'd like to do this kind of coaching all the time and get answers to your career and job search and professional questions, workplace questions, we have the career community. It's at humanworkplace.com. That's my website. And we'd love to see you there. Otherwise, I'll see you on another LinkedIn Live or a YouTube Live. You're awesome. Have a fantastic weekend and just keep growing your flame. And thank you so much for being here today. Take care.